Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time, thanks for stopping by and peeking under the stall to see what I made. I promise it's cool. If this is your first time here, welcome to SkyTrain. This is my art channel where I like to make cool things, mostly toys and little knickknacks, so some big things, some small things. So if you enjoy watching some nerdy things being made, you might want to follow the channel and give it a like or see what I have in store for you. So those of you who watched the previous video know that I've been making Labyrinth figures from the 1986 movie Labyrinth that Jim Henson made. The character I made was Ludo, which is a big beast character, which I'll show you here in a second. My plan for the first series of toys that I make is for this opening scene for that character. So this is the second character from the scene. I know last episode I mentioned goblins, so that's exactly what they are. They are goblins. So to get right to the point, let's show what character I have here. So the second celebrity of SkyTrain is the Goblin, the Nipper Goblin. This is one of my first ZBrush projects. ZBrush is the software I use to model the figures, which I recommend you use. So those of you who watched the last episode might have noticed that I actually have a display case full of these guys right behind me. Because in the opening scene, there's not just one Nipper Goblin, it's a whole gang. They're a whole gang of naughty, really nasty goblins that have these sticks with these little like fetal creatures on them, and they're just constantly biting. So they just use these sticks to whack Ludo, the creature I'll bring up here in just a second. And they bite him, they just nip him. So they're Nipper Goblins, they're just tormenting him. First of all, to compare him to last episode's figure, this is what we covered. So this is Ludo, the character whose opening scene this is. He's about 7 inches tall. And so this is the Nipper Goblin. In the film, it wasn't really easy to see how tall these goblins are, but all goblins are rather small. So realistically, they could be, an inch smaller. I couldn't quite tell, but right now I felt he was a good size compared to not only Ludo, but to the actual figure of Jareth that was produced, one of the few variants. So this Jareth is also about 7 inches tall. So I made the Goblin 5 inches because it's small enough to actually be a decent figure, a decent size, but he's not so small that he ends up looking like a Pokemon. In the movie, these goblins actually have Ludo strung up by a tree by his feet. They have him hanging upside down as they're just whacking him with these nipper sticks. Kind of awful to see, especially as a kid, because you're just hearing him scream and he's just howling, this big beast, but then the hero comes and she saves him, fortunately. And here is one of the many gang member goblins. These little pieces of shit. So, this Nipper Goblin is fully articulated. This Nipper is created, like all my figures, with 2 different types of resin. Smoothcast 45D is a softer resin, which allows for a little bit of give. For example, trying to fit a ball into a socket with material that's too strong, there won't be any give and it won't work, or something will break because you're using too much force, which I've done that too. I've broken a lot of pieces. He is broken a lot of times. And Smoothcast 305, which is the harder resin, and that's good for joints, things that have a lot of use. So he has 2 joints in his shoulders and joints in his hips for his thighs to move around. So those are the main pieces that are 305. His forearms are also 305. Just like Ludo, he's kind of developed. He started off kind of simple and rough, but every time I'd learn a new trick, I'd add more details, more textures, a little bit more articulation. I would change the articulation and make it move more, make it cast better. Like the stick, I was like, okay, well, should I, mold it this way and cast it that way? Should I mold it this way so the resin is casted straight up? Everything has a little bit of a brand new issue that you have to work out, but that's part of the process of making anything. He's fully resin, but he feels like plastic. His base is 305. He has a tile base, that's strong, that has these pegs to allow him to stand on it. So his feet have holes in them, so like a lot of figures, because he can stand on his own, but you know, if you're as clumsy as I am, I knock into things a lot, so it would suck to have a whole display case and then suddenly you just knock over, you just hit the wall or close the door too quickly, and then if he freaking falls down. I'll just run you through the process in which I make these toys. If you watched the last episode and you heard me run down, maybe you'll want to fast forward it, I'm not sure. But if this is your first time, if you're interested, this is how I make these toys. After I design the figure, and design the articulation, which is usually the part that causes the trouble, that causes me to have to remodel, reprint and all that. So I design him, and then I model him in ZBrush, which is a modeling software. I 3D print him on my resin printer. You have to add on the chimneys so that you can actually have it stand within the mold, and then when you cast it with resin, that the air actually has some place to escape. So I print them, and then you have to clean it up, just do a little bit of sanding maybe, get them all nice and pretty, and then you form a mold. Depending on the size, some things are little, sometimes I just use little like Dixie cups. I like using Mold Max 30 because it's durable. Like I covered in the last video, if you use a molding material that doesn't have very high tear strength, then if you try casting something that has certain little details or have kind of large empty spaces, and you pull that resin out of the mold, there's a good chance you can end up actually ripping that mold piece out. And then you can't use it, because if you recast it, then that space will be filled in and the mold is ruined and you have to redo it. And molding materials, just like casting materials like resin, they aren't cheap. It's pretty expensive, or at least it can be if you get the good stuff. The good stuff. So you design them, you print them, you mold them, and then you inject cast them. I like to use dentist syringes, inject the resin into the mold, and then the chimneys allow the air to escape, because otherwise you'll end up with bubbles inside the mold, which after it cures, you pull your piece out and there's just going to be these craters in your piece, and you don't want to use that because it looks like crap. I do dye the resin. I cast him entirely in black, and then I paint him. Fortunately, painting him has been a lot of fun. In the film, the Goblin society is kind of ragtag, messy, dirty, clumsy, kind of a patchwork society. They just kind of make do with junk and crap. They don't really care about making anything look particularly pretty. So his armor is supposed to look a little bit old, worn, dirty, rusty. I coat him with just silver paint, and then I dry brush kind of brownish red color. And then I also dry brush even lighter than that, kind of a faded dark green, because like I said before, their armor is not just rusty, it's also like grimy. And then I do another wash of black, and then I dry brush silver just on the bolts and nuts and things, and just do a little bit of highlighting on the armor. Just a brief side note real quick. I'd been wondering what the Nipper Goblin's like backstory might be, and the way I see it is like one of two different options. Either they're actually like a soldier force for the Goblin City, and they got word that Ludo, this big beast, was wandering the Labyrinth, so they were sent to take care of him. And they were just they found him, and they were just having, you know, their mean old fun with him before trying to get him out of the labyrinth. One of the goblins, once the main character and her companions get to the city, one of the goblins goes up to David Bowie, the Goblin King, and he mentions how Sarah, the girl, has gotten to the city with the dwarf and the beast. So they knew about the beast. Now granted, Jareth could have just known because he's magical, but you know, maybe they got word and it was like, instead of a rat problem, they have like a big monster problem. Or they could just be a gang of little snot-nosed goblins, like literally like a gang of mean outlaw goblins that just go around causing mischief, because that's what goblins do. They're mischievous little creatures. So they could just be on patrol and they just basically gang up on creatures. It makes you wonder what other creatures they might have ganged up on. Like if they ended up like messing around with the wise man, or did they ever run into Hoggle and give him shit? Who knows? Anyway, I just thought I'd give a little bit of backstory. If any of you like Labyrinth and have thought about it yourself, what do you think their backstory is? Why is there a little gang of these gnarly goblins running around the Labyrinth just causing mayhem? And what's the deal with their sticks? Like the nasty little creatures on them, like where do they put them after they come home? Do they just like kind of lay their sticks against the wall and the creatures just kind of crawl down and run around just like little pets? Do they just throw them in a barrel? They throw them in a wet barrel? Do they just cling them onto something like a you know, like when you find like an insect, you just like put it on a stick. They just go home and they find some tree and they just kind of let the nipper fetus bite on and just cling on until they need it again. It's gross. And obviously you're not supposed to think about it that deeply, but you know, sometimes it's fun. Anyway. So yeah, so this is Final Goblin, Good Goblin. Here's a good representation on what the materials look like if you don't dye them, and before you paint them, obviously. The bright white resin is the harder stuff. Now, this figure is so old, I can't remember if it's actually 45D and 305. I think it's something else, but the material properties are close enough that it might as well be. So the bright white material is 305, which is the harder stuff, and the more transparent stuff is the softer resin, which is 45D. Now, what's funny here for me to see actually is seeing not only the changes of articulation that I managed to do, but also how I've stopped casting certain pieces of the toy in its original resin, like the upper arms. Those are 45D now. The head's not hard resin. The hips aren't hard resin, nor are the feet. So really, the only thing that's the same is the joints. Those are hard resin that I stick into the soft bodies. But another fallen arm! But they pop in great. That's why it's nice having a hard resin socket, ball joint, and then a soft socketed piece, because they just fit in so good and they hold together really well. Prototype Goblin. And then this was the very first Goblin I painted. He's missing a leg. I got missing arms, missing legs. Our pets' heads are falling off! So this is my very first trial with the armor, which I thought was really good. But you could see just how tiny his feet are. So I really had to make them larger. So unfortunately he has to sit down because he is legless. I'll make him sit. There we go. So this is a more recent, basically unpainted prototype. So this is what he pretty much looks like when he's completely cast and put together before he's painted. He's just entirely black. Now there's some problems with this figure as well, like there's too much room in his head for the ball joint, sorry, on his neck. So when you pop the head on, it's kind of wiggles, and I didn't like that. The feet were messy. I was working with the leg joints, kind of squeaky, but everything else pretty much worked fine. It was just, he was pretty good. This is an example of a pretty good cast. I just had some little tweaks. Some little tweaks I really needed to work out in order to make him good. I only want the best figures. I'm kind of a perfectionist. I'm kind of a perfectionist, which is why this is taking so long. Now, granted, I think being a perfectionist has its perks. It makes the product that you're trying to do, it makes the results you're trying to get a lot nicer. But it just makes you so picky. You see all the little flaws that nobody else would notice. No one would see that. It's like, oh, the bottom of the foot's wrong. It's like, no one gives a shit about the bottom of the foot, Niles. But I do, so, oh well. This was supposed to be the main finished figure. But just like the second Ludo, it's like I just forgot how I painted the first one. So I don't know why, but I just made him purple. I was like, oh yeah, I was probably thinking, oh, what's the cloth color on this guy? Yeah, it's purple. It's not purple. it's either brown or red. So I made this goblin. Not only did I go too light on the rusty color, like the rusty red brown on the armor, so it doesn't really show up, but I went too strong with the green, so it looks like he's got rather shiny, polluted armor, like absolutely polluted. He's got like splotches of green, and his cloth is all purple, and his socks and his forearms are really blue. I don't know why I made him this way, which is too bad, because he was like perfect otherwise, like everything worked. He was pristine essentially, except I totally screwed up the paint job, and I really don't have, I'm sorry teacher, I don't have an excuse, but I kind of like him still anyway, because the way I see it, since I only have one of them, he seems kind of like the captain, or like the leader of the group. He's a little bit flashier. Maybe his cloth was worth one more silver coin than theirs or something like that. He looks a bit more important than the regular goblins, so actually didn't mind so much. So those are the main goblins. I'll give you a scan of the goblins behind me. I don't really need to take them out because there's not really a need to. They're basically him, but painted more like him with a little bit of articulation flaws, and they don't even have their sticks or anything, so there's not really a point. But yeah, so this is kind of a nice lineup of the different processes, and so if you can imagine a whole bunch of those goblins just picking on this big creature just upside down, just whacking him and stuff. It's so sad. It's so sad. And also here's Jareth with it. Oh my god, I cannot talk. And then Jareth and his goblin gang. And also here's Jareth with his goblin gang. And also here's Jareth with his goblins. I plan on making a whole lot more goblins, so I can't wait to have a lineup of them and have him just babe with the power with them. Anyone who hasn't seen the movies, that just sounded like absolute gobbledygook to them, but I don't, whatever. So let me put these away. One other side note is that, another side note, the latest thing I've changed actually, which I'm still currently working on, is changing the tiles. And it looks fine. I don't mind it, but I wanted it to look better, so I have remodeled that. So as far as I'm concerned, this is what the final product looks like, except for the base. The base will look a little bit different. Now, just like Ludo, I wanted to give him another accessory. I wanted to add something for display, so something else pops with him. So, like all my Labyrinth figures, I decided to make him a card. Ooh, oh no, it fell down. Just like Ludo, I decided to make him a card stand, a profile card on this fairy stand that I made. It's a black cast base, a little bit of ground that matches the coloring of his tile base, and it comes with two white printed, 3D printed fairies, which are screen accurate to the film. You do see fairies at the very beginning, just briefly, of the film, causing some problems, just like the goblin. So these fairies like to bite people, just like the nippers. So I made a fairy stand and a profile card for the goblin, which says, "A goblin armed with a nipping stick. Up to no good." So there he is. Well, he is. So there he is, the Nipper Goblin and his, if I may say so, quite lovely card stand on display. It'll be nice to kind of army build a little bit once I make these goblins. So there he is. I'm very proud of him. He's been, like Ludo and like the figure for next video, he's been years in the making, but it's been entirely worth it because I've been wanting him for a while. But I don't want to, whenever I make something, I don't want to half-ass something and have it be just kind of okay. I really want it to be as good as I think I can possibly make it, which countless times over the past few years has meant going back to tweak the smallest little thing because I notice it and it drives me crazy. And I feel like I have this paranoia that if I notice it, everyone's going to notice and no one's going to want to like have one or think it's good at all. Like it's like toy insecurity. So there he is. So now, in addition to making a figure and a card stand, I also made two other just little items. Like I said before, on this channel in my shop, I like to make articulated figures, big things, but I also like making smaller things, simpler things like knickknacks, like keychains and magnets. So I actually made keychains so you could carry around just a helmet of a rusty helmet of the Nipper Goblin and a fridge magnet. Comes with all kinds of good stuff, really. And just to cover it from, oh, that's so far away. Well, I'll just show it here. Just to cover it from last episode, because I actually forgot to put it in there, I did the same thing with Ludo. This is the keychain. I put a ribbon on it because I actually used them as ornaments this year on my Christmas tree. So you could do that too. It doesn't have to be a keychain. It could also be an ornament or just a little piece of decoration. And the magnet is the exact same one, except it's got a socket inside that you could put the magnet in. And I got one on my fridge. Ludo did come with his own little merch. So yeah, my Nipper Goblin is done. And I am so very happy to finally share it with you in a video that actually has me explaining my thought process and the actual physical process of making him. I'm very proud. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about him. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think their stories are? Yeah, what are your thoughts? What do you like? What do you dislike? Do you have any questions? Did I not cover something? Yeah, if there's something you want me to cover, especially in the process of making these figures, please let me know. I feel like I cover most things, but if you want a deeper insight on any aspect of it, let me know. I'll be happy to cover it for you. I know there's a lot of action figure toy lovers out there who would love to design their own toys, and it is possible. Like it's completely possible as a hobbyist. I'm just a hobbyist. Like, now I have a shop, but it is fully possible to make your own stuff. It does take a lot of time, and you do need the right materials. Like, you can't just, it's not easy by any means, but it's doable. Like, you need, the way I did it was, you need a modeling software, slicing software, a 3D printer, molding materials and casting materials and paint, and then all the cleaning supplies and cups and other little like just side materials. So there's a whole bunch of different parts to making a toy, but I love doing it. I'm so glad I got into it like 5 or 6 years ago, because I've made a lot of figures now that I'm really excited to show on this channel, and I have even more planned. I plan on making a lot more stuff. So the first 3 videos of this channel, so including next video, are Labyrinth themed, but after that is going to be something different. So if you like Labyrinth, by all means follow the channel if you like it, because you'll be seeing a lot more Labyrinth stuff. But if you're interested in just toy making in general and seeing what other nerdy stuff from franchises or from my own original imagination, then consider following the channel as well, because it's all interesting. I promise. It's all going to be really cool stuff. Sometimes it's more cool, like interesting things. Other times it's just my sense of humor. I just want to make something stupid or silly. I like doing funny things as well. So yeah, please leave a comment if you've made anything Labyrinth related. I would love to hear about it. Send me pictures of them if you can, if you want to. I love seeing the kinds of stuff that fans make. I think it's so cool how people have the passion to make stuff from films or franchises that have meant so much to them. And Labyrinth has meant a lot to me my whole life. It's one of my absolute favorite films. And that's why I've been so passionate into making these things, because I wanted this stuff growing up and I never got it. Labyrinth never really came out with really good action figures. It's only pretty recently that they ever made the line of Jareth variants, and one of them comes with Hoggle, but the dwarf. But you know, you didn't get Ludo, you didn't get a whole bunch of goblins, and I wanted these to be as nicely painted as a statue would be, rather than some mass-produced, as hastily painted toy as possible. I wanted these to be high quality, high accuracy, and I think I did it as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, guys, that's my Goblin. I can't wait to show you more. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Until then, stay safe. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, that time that was really embarrassing, you know, that one time? Yeah, don't forget that. All right, bye.